Today, you're getting 5 insane family karma stories that will leave your jaw on the floor. Rich families who humiliated, disowned, and laughed at the broke loser until they found out he secretly controlled everything. Stay until the end because number 5 is the most brutal one we've ever told. Let's dive in.
The sound of a silver spoon tapping against crystal glass is supposed to signal a celebration. It is supposed to be a joyous summons, calling for silence so that love can be proclaimed. But for me, standing in the back of the ballroom, hidden in the shadows of a massive floral arrangement that probably cost more than my rent, that sound was a trigger. It sounded like the toll of a funeral bell. It was the sound of my execution. My father stood at the head table, the microphone gripped tightly in his hand, his knuckles white. He looked distinguished in his tuxedo, the picture of a benevolent patriarch. But I knew the venom that coursed through his veins. I could see the glint in his eyes as he scanned the room, soaking in the admiration of the 300 guests. The air smelled of expensive lilies and roast duck, a thick, suffocating perfume of wealth that made my stomach churn. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father's voice boomed, smooth as silk. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my daughter, Jessica, and her new husband, Mark. Looking at her today, radiant and successful, a partner at one of the city's top firms, I am reminded of what true excellence looks like." He paused for effect. The room was silent. I felt the sweat prickling on the back of my neck. I knew what was coming. It was the same script he had been reading from since I was 6 years old. "It is a relief," he continued, his tone shifting slightly, dropping an octave into mock solemnity. "It is a relief to see that at least one of my children has made something of themselves. You know, raising children is a gamble. Sometimes you get a diamond like Jessica." He gestured to my sister, who sat there preening, her smile tight and smug. "And sometimes, well, sometimes you get a stone that refuses to be polished." "Where is he?" "Liam." The spotlight, guided by some cruel instruction given beforehand, swept across the room and landed squarely on me. I was blinded for a second, blinking against the harsh glare. The murmur of the crowd was instant. 300 heads turned. I could hear the whispers like the hissing of snakes. "That's the brother? The failure? Look at his suit, it looks off the rack." "There he is," my father laughed, a cold, dry sound. "Our little project. I told Jessica she shouldn't have invited him." I said, "Why bring the black sheep to a white wedding?" But Jessica has a big heart. She wanted her brother to see what real success looks like. Maybe it would inspire him to stop whatever it is he does. Fixing cars? Flipping burgers? I honestly lose track of his mediocrity. Laughter. It rippled through the room. Not nervous laughter, but genuine, mocking amusement. My mother, sitting next to my father, didn't look down in shame. She raised her glass to me, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "To Jessica," my father shouted, "the child we are actually proud to call a Swanson." "To Jessica," the crowd roared. I stood there frozen. My hands were clenched so tight inside my pockets that my fingernails were digging into my palms, drawing blood. The humiliation wasn't just mental, it was physical. It felt like a band of iron tightening around my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. But I did nothing. I just swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced a smile that felt like a crack in a porcelain mask. To understand why I didn't storm out, why I stood there and took the abuse like a beaten dog, you have to understand the history. You have to understand that this wasn't a one-time event. This was the culmination of 25 years of systematic destruction. My memory drifted back, away from the clinking glasses, to the cold interior of our childhood home. I was 10. It was Christmas morning. Under the tree, the pile of gifts was a mountain of gold and red paper. Jessica, 2 years younger than me, was tearing into boxes. A new bicycle, a gaming console, a designer coat. I sat with one small wrapped box in my lap. "Open it, Liam," my mother had said, sipping her morning mimosa. "Don't be ungrateful." I opened it. It was a set of textbooks, advanced mathematics for high schoolers. I was 10. "We need you to focus," my father had said, not looking up from his newspaper. "Jessica has natural charm. She's going to rule the world with her personality. You need to work harder. You're slow, Liam. We're just trying to fix you." I got straight A's this year, I had whispered. In a public school, my mother scoffed. That hardly counts. Jessica got into the private academy. That's achievement. You're just existing. That was the narrative. Jessica was the golden child. I was the scapegoat. Every success I had was minimized. Every failure was magnified and broadcast to the family. When I made the varsity soccer team, they didn't come to the games because Jessica had dance practice. When I got into a state university on a full academic scholarship, my father refused to co-sign the lease for my apartment because he said I would probably drop out and waste his credit score. If you want to leave this house, he had told me when I was 18, standing in the foyer of the mansion I was never allowed to feel at home in, you do it on your own. No handouts for failures. We're saving our resources for the child, who will actually give us a return on investment. So I left. I packed my bags and I vanished into the city. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I cut myself off. For 7 years, I lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet. I worked days in a logistics warehouse and nights waiting tables. To them, to my parents and Jessica, I was a ghost who occasionally showed up at holidays to be mocked. They assumed my silence was shame. They assumed my cheap car and off-the-rack suits were signs of poverty. They didn't know about the nights I spent coding. They didn't know about the logistics software I developed during those long shifts at the warehouse to optimize shipping routes. They didn't know I had sold the patent to a global shipping conglomerate 6 months ago. They didn't know that the failure standing in the back of the wedding hall, being laughed at by 300 strangers, currently had a bank balance that could buy this entire venue, burn it down, and rebuild it without making a dent in his portfolio. I had kept it a secret. A test. A desperate, pathetic test to see if they could love me without the money. If they could treat me with basic human dignity just because I was their son. My father's toast ended, and the music swelled. Jessica walked by me, her silk dress rustling like dry leaves. She stopped, leaning in close, her breath smelling of expensive champagne. "Thanks for coming, Liam," she whispered, her voice dripping with poison. "Dad was right, though. You really bring the property value down just by standing here. Try not to eat too much of the buffet, okay? I'd hate for the guests to think we're feeding the homeless." She laughed and glided away, melting into the arms of her new husband. I watched her go. The sadness I had carried for 20 years finally evaporated. It was replaced by something colder, harder. A vibration buzzed in my pocket. Not my phone. It was the pager I had given to the only other person in this room who knew the truth. The heavy oak doors at the entrance of the ballroom creaked open. The room went quiet, not out of respect, but out of confusion. A man walked in. He didn't fit the wedding aesthetic. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that was tailored to perfection, carrying a leather briefcase that looked heavy. He wasn't a guest. He was a shark. It was Mr. Sterling, the family lawyer. But he wasn't here for my father. He scanned the room, ignoring my father's confused wave from the head table. His eyes locked onto mine. He gave a sharp, professional nod and began to walk straight toward me, cutting through the dance floor like a knife. My father's voice rang out over the microphone, uncertain now. "Mr. Sterling? What are you doing here? We aren't discussing the merger until Monday." Mr. Sterling didn't stop. He didn't even look at my father. He walked right up to me, the failure in the corner, and spoke loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Mr. Swanson," Sterling said, his voice projecting clearly, "I apologize for the interruption, but the transfer is complete. The board needs your final signature on the acquisition of the family estate. And, regarding the $50 million inheritance from your late grandmother that your parents tried to bury, we found the documents." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. For 3 seconds, the only sound in the room was the high-pitched whine of microphone feedback. My father had dropped the mic. It rolled across the floor of the stage, a jarring thump-thump screech that echoed the sudden chaotic rhythm of his heart. "What did you say?" My father didn't use the microphone this time. He didn't need to. His voice was a guttural roar, stripped of its polished veneer. He scrambled down the stairs of the stage, almost tripping over his own expensive Italian shoes. "Sterling, have you lost your mind? You're fired. Get out of my daughter's wedding." Mr. Sterling didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He simply adjusted his glasses and opened the thick leather folder he was holding. The sound of the heavy paper turning was crisp and authoritative. "You cannot fire me, Mr. Swanson," Sterling said, his voice calm, cutting through my father's panic like a scalpel. "I was never working for you. I was retained by the estate of Eleanor Swanson, your late mother." "My mother is dead," my father spat, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. He was close now, standing toe-to-toe with the lawyer, ignoring me completely. I was still the ghost to him, just a bystander in his drama. "She died 5 years ago. Her assets were settled." "Were they?" I spoke up. My voice wasn't loud. I didn't shout. I used the voice I used in boardrooms when I was acquiring a failing competitor. Low, steady, final. My father whipped his head around. For the first time in my life, he looked at me with confusion instead of disdain. "What are you babbling about, Liam?" my mother hissed, rushing over to join the fray. Her face was pale beneath her heavy makeup. She clutched her pearl necklace as if it were a rosary. "Don't ruin this. Don't you dare ruin this for Jessica. Just leave. Go back to your little life." "I'm not going anywhere, Mother," I said, stepping forward. I took the document from Sterling's hand. "And neither are you. Not until you hear this." I looked at the crowd. The guests were leaning in. The waiters had stopped serving the cake. The band had lowered their instruments. This was better than the wedding. This was a public execution, and human nature can't resist a spectacle. "Grandmother knew," I said, looking directly at my father. "She knew you were leveraging the company accounts to fund your lifestyle. She knew you were draining the family trust to pay for Jessica's private schools, her cars, this wedding, while you let me take out student loans." "That's a lie," Jessica shrieked from the head table. She stood up, knocking over her champagne glass. It shattered, the liquid spreading like a bloodstain on the white tablecloth. "Daddy, tell him to shut up. He's just jealous. He's always been jealous." "Read the addendum, Mr. Sterling," I commanded. Sterling cleared his throat. "Clause 4B of the last will and testament of Eleanor Swanson. In the event that my son, Robert Swanson, demonstrates financial irresponsibility or moral failure in the treatment of his kin, the entirety of the family trust, previously hidden under the Shell Corporation Swan Holdings, shall bypass him completely. It shall be awarded to the grandchild who demonstrates self-sufficiency and integrity." Sterling looked up over his spectacles. "The trust was set to mature yesterday. It is valued at $52 million post-tax." My father laughed. It was a manic, breathless sound. "And you think Liam is the one? He waits tables. He lives in a dump." "I live where I chose to live," I said, my voice hardening. "And I don't wait tables anymore, Dad. I haven't for a long time. While you were busy mocking me for fixing cars and flipping burgers, I built an algorithmic logistics platform. Nexus Logistics. Does that ring a bell?" The color didn't just drain from my father's face. It vanished. He staggered back as if I had punched him. "Nexus," he whispered. We use Nexus software. Every shipping company in the state uses Nexus." "I know," I said cold. "I own it. I sold the licensing rights last year, but I kept the majority share. And do you know what I did with the profits, Dad?" I took a step closer to him. He looked smaller now. The benevolent patriarch was gone, replaced by a terrified old man. "I started buying debt," I said. "Distressed assets. High-risk loans. Specifically yours." My mother let out a small, strangled whimper. She reached out and grabbed my father's arm to steady herself. You bought our mortgage?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Not just the mortgage, Mom," I said. "I bought the business loans. The lines of credit you used to pay for the summer house. The loans you took out to pay for this wedding because you're actually broke. I own it all. I am the bank. And you are in default." The revelation hit the room like a shockwave. I could hear the whispers exploding into gasps. "Broke? The Swansons are broke? The son owns their debt?" Jessica ran down from the stage, her heavy dress bunching up in her hands. She pushed past our father and grabbed my lapels. Her face was twisted in ugly, desperate rage. "You can't do this," she screamed, shaking me. "This is my day. You're lying. Make him stop, Mark. She looked back at her new husband, but Mark was slowly backing away, looking at his phone, probably checking the stock market or calling his own lawyer. Get your hands off me, I said, peeling her fingers off my suit. I brushed the lapel where she had touched me. This is a $5,000 suit, Jessica. You can't afford the dry cleaning bill. Liam, please. My mother's tone shifted instantly. It was the most terrifying transformation yet. Her face softened, her eyes welled with fake tears. She reached out a hand, trembling, trying to stroke my cheek. Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? We were so worried about you. We pushed you because we wanted you to succeed. We knew you had it in you. We were just using tough love. Tough love. I laughed. It was a dark, hollow sound that echoed off the high ceilings. When I was 16, I had pneumonia. You told me to stop coughing because it was annoying you while you watched TV. You didn't take me to the hospital until I passed out. That wasn't love. That was neglect. I turned to Mr. Sterling. Show them the other document. Sterling pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a foreclosure notice. This, Sterling announced, holding it up, is a notice of immediate foreclosure on the Swanson estate. Since the loans are held privately by Mr. Liam Swanson, he has exercised his right to call in the debt immediately due to breach of character clauses inherent in the original family bylaws. You're kicking us out? My father's voice was barely a whisper. But where will we go? I don't know, I said, shrugging. Maybe you can find a nice studio apartment. I hear they build character. Liam, you can't, my mother wailed, falling to her knees. It was a theatrical performance, but the fear in her eyes was real. We're your family. Family supports each other. Family. I looked down at her. 10 minutes ago, I was a worthless stone. I was a project. I was a mistake. You invited me here to be a prop, to make Jessica look brighter by comparison. Well, look at her now. I pointed at Jessica. She was sitting on the floor, sobbing into her hands, mascara running down her face in black streaks. Her husband, Mark, was nowhere to be seen. He had slipped out the side door. The wedding is over, I announced to the room. The venue has been paid for by my father's credit card, which I just canceled 5 minutes ago. I suggest you all eat the cake quickly. The caterers are packing up. The chaos that ensued was absolute. But I wasn't done. There was one last twist of the knife. One last secret that grandmother Eleanor had left for me to use only in case of emergency. Oh, and Dad, I called out as he stared blankly at the floor. He looked up, his eyes dead. There's one more thing about the company, I said, smiling. Mr. Sterling found the audit logs. The illegal offshore accounts? The tax evasion schemes you set up in the Cayman Islands under Jessica's name. Jessica's head snapped up. What? I didn't turn them into the IRS, I said softly, checking my watch. Yet. I gave you a 24-hour window. It started when I walked into this room. My father's face went from pale to gray. He clutched his chest. You have 23 hours and 40 minutes to confess, I said, or I hand the hard drive to the authorities. And Jessica goes down with you as a co-conspirator. The silence that followed my ultimatum was heavy, broken only by the sound of expensive cutlery being gently set down by guests who suddenly realized they had urgent appointments elsewhere. The exodus began slowly, then all at once. It was a masterclass in social abandonment. Mark, my sister's husband of exactly 3 hours, was the first to reach the exit. Mark! Jessica screamed, scrambling up from the floor, her dress stained with wine and tears. Where are you going? Do something. Fight him. Mark turned at the door. He didn't look angry. He looked calculated. I signed a prenup, Jessica. It says the marriage is void if there is undisclosed financial liability exceeding $1 million. Your brother just said you're on the hook for tax fraud. He shrugged, checking his watch. I'm calling my lawyer. Don't contact me. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Jessica collapsed again, this time in genuine heaving sobs. But nobody moved to comfort her. My mother was too busy hyperventilating into a napkin, and my father was staring at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. I buttoned my jacket. The air in the room felt lighter, cleaner. The suffocating smell of lilies and hypocrisy was gone. replaced by the cold, sharp scent of justice. "You have the paperwork, Mr. Sterling?" I asked. "Everything is prepared, Mr. Swanson," Sterling replied, snapping his briefcase shut. "The eviction team is on standby for the estate. We'll give them, shall we say, until Monday morning to vacate." "Monday is generous," I said, looking at my parents one last time. "But I'm feeling generous. Enjoy the weekend. It's the last one you'll spend as Swansons of Highgate Manor." I turned to walk away, but my father's voice stopped me. It was weak, a rasping shadow of the boom that had commanded the room earlier. "Liam, please. How do we fix this? How much do you want? I can work for you. I can consult. I know the industry." I stopped and looked back over my shoulder. "You don't know the industry, Dad. You know how to bully people. And I don't hire bullies. I fire them." I walked out of the ballroom, the heavy doors swinging shut behind me, muffling the sounds of my family's destruction. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I pulled my phone from my pocket. I had one notification. It was a text from my bank. Deposit confirmed, $52,400,000. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just took a deep breath, looked up at the stars, and finally, for the first time in 25 years, I felt light. Epilogue. 8 months later. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can certainly buy peace of mind. And more importantly, it can buy distance. I sat on the terrace of my new home, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The only sound was the rhythmic crashing of waves against the cliffs below. On the table in front of me was a tablet displaying a news article. Former socialite family auctions remaining assets in bankruptcy settlement. The photo showed my childhood home, the mansion where I was treated like a servant, being sold to a tech billionaire who planned to bulldoze it and build a minimalist retreat. The irony wasn't lost on me. The article detailed the fall of the Swanson empire. My father had avoided prison by liquidating every single asset. He had to pay the IRS fines and the penalties for the offshore accounts. He was currently living in a 2-bedroom apartment in the industrial district, working as a mid-level manager at a trucking company, a company that was a subsidiary of Nexus Logistics. He was working for me, though he would never know it. I made sure his employee file was flagged so he would never be promoted. My mother had moved in with her sister in Ohio, a woman she had mocked for being middle class for 30 years. I heard through the grapevine that she spends her days clipping coupons and complaining about the humidity. And Jessica? I took a sip of my espresso and scrolled down. There was a small sidebar story. Local waitress causes scene at diner. Jessica hadn't handled the divorce well. Mark had taken the condo, the car, and the dog. With her reputation destroyed by the fraud allegations, no law firm would touch her. She was currently working the lunch shift at a diner 3 towns over. Last week she tried to call me. It was a blocked number, but I knew it was her. She left a voicemail. "Liam, it's Jess. Look, I'm really struggling here. I can't make rent. Mom won't help. I know we had our differences, but I'm your sister. You have $50 million. Can't you just spare $5,000? Please. I'm begging you." I listened to it twice. I thought about the Christmas morning with the math textbooks. I thought about the wedding toast where she laughed while our father called me worthless. I thought about the years of tough love. I didn't block the number. I simply deleted the voicemail. I stood up and walked to the edge of the terrace. My phone buzzed. It was an email from the scholarship fund I had set up in grandmother Eleanor's name. Subject: First 50 recipients selected. 50 kids from broken homes, kids who were told they weren't good enough, kids who were the black sheep, were getting full rides to college. I smiled. The wind off the ocean was cold, but I had never felt warmer. Karma doesn't always show up on time, but when she does, she brings the whole check. And in my case, the check cleared.
Next story in 3, 2, 1.
The blizzard outside was raging, a white curtain of snow that erased the world, but inside the obsidian lodge, everything was golden. The fire in the massive stone hearth crackled with the sound of burning birch wood, filling the air with the scent of wood smoke and expensive cinnamon candles. Through the frosted floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them. My family. They were gathered around a mahogany dining table that was long enough to land a plane on. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier. There was roast goose, truffles, and bottles of wine that cost more than most people's monthly car payments. They were laughing. My brother, Julian, was holding court, gesturing wildly with a fork, probably bragging about some inflated investment return. My mother was beaming at him, her face flushed with pride and Pinot Noir. I stood in the foyer, shaking the snow off my heavy parka. I hadn't been invited. In fact, I had been explicitly told not to come. The email from my mother 3 weeks ago had been brief and surgical. This year, we are celebrating at a private estate in Aspen. It's a very exclusive gathering for Julian's new partners. We think it's best if you stay in the city. You wouldn't fit in, and we don't want to make you uncomfortable with the discrepancy in lifestyles. Discrepancy in lifestyles. That was the polite way of saying, you are poor, you are embarrassing, and we don't want you ruining the aesthetic. I unzipped my coat. I wasn't wearing a tuxedo. I was wearing jeans and a thick flannel shirt. I looked like a local handyman, which, coincidentally, was exactly what they thought I had become. I walked into the dining room. The heavy oak boots I wore made a solid thud against the marble floor. The laughter died instantly. It was as if someone had cut the power cord to the room's joy. "Oh my God," my mother said, her fork clattering onto her plate. She didn't say hello. She didn't say Merry Christmas. She looked at me with the same expression one reserves for a rat found in the pantry. "Liam, what on earth are you doing here?" "Merry Christmas to you too, Mom," I said, my voice raspy from the cold. "I was in the neighborhood." "In the neighborhood?" Julian scoffed, leaning back in his chair. He looked slick, his hair gelled back, wearing a velvet dinner jacket that looked ridiculous. "We are in Aspen, Liam. This is a gated estate on a private mountain. You don't just happen to be in the neighborhood unless you're delivering pizza. Did you follow us here? Stalking is a new low, even for you." "I needed to check on something," I said calmly, looking around the room. I noticed a crack in the plaster near the fireplace that hadn't been there last week. I made a mental note, and since the storm closed the roads, I figured I'd stop by. "Well, you can't stay," my father grumbled from the head of the table. He didn't even turn to look at me. He was busy carving the goose. "There's no room. All the sweets are taken. And we have guests arriving, Julian's investors. We can't have you lingering. It looks bad." "I don't need a suite," I said. "I just need to warm up before I head back out." "Head back out?" My mother stood up, her napkin clutching in her hand. "Liam, look at you. You're dripping melted snow on the Persian rug. Do you know how much the deposit is on this place? This represents the pinnacle of luxury rental. If we lose the security deposit because you tracked mud in, you're paying for it." "Oh wait. You can't." The table erupted in small, cruel chuckles. Even the cousins who used to play video games with me when we were kids covered their mouths to hide their smirks. This was the dynamic. It had always been the dynamic. I remember when I was 12, the black sheep year. My parents had bought Julian a computer because he showed executive potential by bossing the neighborhood kids around. They bought me a set of paintbrushes because I was sensitive. When I said I wanted to learn code, they laughed. "Coding is for workers, Liam. Swansons are owners. We manage people who code." By 20, when I dropped out of business school to start a tech incubator in a garage, I was officially exiled. They cut me off. No trust fund. No invites to the gala. Just a cold shoulder and the occasional check for $50 on my birthday, usually accompanied by a note suggesting I apply for a manager position at a retail store. They saw my silence as failure. They saw my lack of flashiness as poverty. When I showed up to family events in a truck instead of a sports car, they assumed I was struggling. They didn't know I drove a truck because I was renovating properties I bought with cash. They didn't know I wore flannel because I spent my days on site, managing projects worth more than my father's entire portfolio. "Seriously, Liam," Julian said, standing up and walking over to me. He stood too close, smelling of cologne and arrogance. "You need to leave. Now, the investors will be here in an hour. If they see this," he gestured up and down my body, "they might think we're related to the help. It could tank the deal." "The deal?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "A massive real estate merger," Julian bragged, puffing out his chest. "We're pivoting the family fund into luxury hospitality. That's why we rented this place. The Obsidian Lodge. It's the flagship property of the most exclusive rental group in the state. We're trying to get a meeting with the owner of the holding company. He's a ghost, nobody knows who he is, but we heard he might be in Aspen. I fought the urge to smile. So, you rented this place to impress the owner of this place? It's called strategy, Liam. Something you'd understand if you ever made more than minimum wage. Julian sneered. Now get out. Go wait in your truck. Or go to the servants' quarters in the back. The garage has a heater. But you are not eating at this table. The garage. I repeated. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees, and it wasn't because of the storm. Yes, the garage, my mother chimed in, sitting back down and reaching for her wine. And take your boots off before you walk through the kitchen. Honestly, Robert, why didn't we hire security? I told you strays would come sniffing around if they smelled the food. I looked at them. Really looked at them. They weren't just mean, they were delusional. They were sitting in a $15 million mansion, eating food they probably bought on credit, trying to impress an invisible billionaire, while kicking their own son out into a blizzard. I'm not going to the garage, I said softly. Excuse me. My father stopped carving. He turned around, the knife glinting in the firelight. This is a private rental, Liam. My name is on the lease. That makes this my house for the week. And I am telling you to leave. Your name is on the lease? I asked, reaching into the inner pocket of my parka. Yes. And I will call the police if I have to, my father shouted, his face reddening. I will have you escorted off the property for trespassing. You don't need to call the police, I said, pulling out a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a weapon. It was a tablet. I tapped the screen, bringing up the smart home control interface for the estate. And you might want to check the lease agreement again, Dad. Specifically the clause regarding owner's access rights. What are you talking about? Julian snapped. Put that cheap tablet away. I'm talking about the heating, I said. I slid my finger across the screen. Instantly, the roaring fire in the hearth died down to a simmer as the gas feed was cut. The ambient lights, which had been set to a warm golden glow, suddenly shifted to a harsh, clinical bright white, like an operating room. The holiday music cutting through the speakers stopped abruptly, replaced by a loud automated voice that echoed through the high ceilings. System alert. Unauthorized occupancy detected in master dining hall. Tenant violation recorded. The room went silent. The only sound was the wind howling outside, louder now that the fire was dying. Turn it back, Julian shouted, shielding his eyes against the harsh clinical light that was now flooding the room. You hacked the Wi-Fi, didn't you? You petty little. Give me that tablet. He lunged for me across the marble floor, but I simply took a step back. He slipped on the wet snow I had tracked in, the same snow they had mocked me for, and went down hard on one knee. Careful, I said, my voice cutting through the automated alarm that was still blaring. You scuffed that marble, Julian, and it's coming out of your inheritance. Oh wait, there isn't one, is there? Turn off that damn alarm, my father bellowed, his face turning purple. I am calling the management company right now. I will have you arrested for cyber vandalism. Do you know who runs this place? The Obsidian Group. They are the most powerful real estate firm in the Rockies. They don't tolerate trash like you messing with their systems. My father pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling with rage as he scrolled through his contacts. I have the direct line for the Platinum Concierge. I was told to use this only for extreme emergencies. Well, having a squatter interrupt my Christmas dinner counts. My mother was practically hyperventilating. Robert, tell them to send security. Tell them to bring the police. He's ruining the ambience. The investors will be here any minute. I'm dialing, my father yelled. He put the phone to his ear, glaring at me with pure hatred. You're done, Liam. You're actually done. I'm going to make sure you spend Christmas in a cell. The room went silent, save for the ringing tone coming from my father's speakerphone. Ring, ring. I stood there calm watching them. I felt a vibration in my pocket. Ring. I reached into my jeans pocket and pulled out my phone. A black unbranded smartphone. Ring. The sound of a ringtone, a classic old-school telephone bell, echoed through the dining room. It was coming from my hand. My father frowned, lowering his phone slightly. He looked at his screen, then at me. He looked confused. He hit end call. My phone stopped ringing. Coincidence, Julian muttered, standing up and brushing off his knees. He probably set an alarm to annoy us. Try again, Dad, I said, smiling. Maybe the reception is bad in here. The walls are reinforced stone after all. Cost a fortune to insulate. My father narrowed his eyes. He pressed call again. Ring. My phone lit up instantly. Ring. I swiped the screen to answer. I held the phone up to my ear. Obsidian Group Executive Office, I said into the phone. My eyes locked on my father's. This is the owner speaking. How can I help you, Mr. Swanson? My father's voice came through the speaker of his phone and the air in the room simultaneously. What? He dropped his hand. The call disconnected. You. My mother whispered. She looked around the massive dining hall, the 30-foot ceilings, the imported Italian chandeliers, the heated floors, which were now rapidly cooling down. You work for the management company? You're the janitor? The maintenance guy? God, you people are dense, I sighed. I tapped the tablet again. The harsh lights dimmed slightly, but the room remained cold. The alarm stopped. I don't work for the management company, Mom. I am the management company. I founded Obsidian Group 4 years ago. This house? Obsidian Lodge? I designed it. I built it. And I own it. Bullshit, Julian spat. But his voice lacked conviction. He was looking at my boots. The same heavy boots I wore on construction sites. Sites he had probably driven past without a second thought. You're broke. You drive a pickup truck. I drive a Ford Raptor because it handles the terrain when I'm scouting locations for $50 million resorts. I corrected him. And I wear flannel because I actually work for a living, Julian. Unlike you, who plays investor with Dad's dwindling retirement fund. I walked over to the head of the table. My father was still standing there, frozen, the carving knife hanging limply in his hand. By the way, I said, picking up a bottle of wine, a vintage Cabernet. I inspected the label. You put this on the house account, right? Along with the catering and the ski lift passes. It's included in the package, my father stammered. He was shrinking. The bluster was evaporating, replaced by a dawning, terrifying realization. Actually, the platinum package requires a pre-authorization of $50,000 on a valid credit card, I said. I got a notification this morning from my billing department. Do you know what it said, Dad? I didn't wait for an answer. It said declined. Insufficient funds. The silence this time was heavy, suffocating. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Julian looked away, his face pale. You're broke, I said, stating it as a fact, not a question. You're here, posing in my house, eating my food, trying to land a deal to save yourselves from bankruptcy. And the credit card you used to book this place is maxed out. It's a liquidity issue, Julian shouted, desperate to regain control. We have assets. We just need to move some capital around. Once the merger goes through with the Obsidian Group, we'll be... He stopped. He choked on the words. He looked at me. He looked at the logo on the napkin he was holding. A stylized black mountain. Then he looked at the logo on my tablet. The merger, Julian whispered. The investor we're supposed to meet. The ghost. Hello, Julian, I said, spreading my arms. I heard you have a pitch for me. Something about luxury hospitality? I assume you were planning to use my own money to pay me back for staying in my own house. My father sank into his chair. He looked like he had aged 20 years and 20 seconds. Liam, you're the chairman? I am, I said. And I have to say, your pitch isn't going well. The hospitality has been lacking. I believe the phrase was go to the garage? We didn't know. My mother wailed, tears starting to stream down her face. Liam, baby, we didn't know it was you. We were just stressed. You know how your father gets. We love you. We were just trying to protect the family image. The family image, I repeated, looking at the congealing goose on the table. You excluded me because I was a black sheep. You thought I was a stain on your perfect picture. But it turns out, I'm the only one who can afford the frame. I checked my watch. Now, about those investors you said were arriving in an hour? The partners Julian was bragging about. They're running late, Julian muttered, looking at the floor. No, they're not, I said. Because they aren't coming. I canceled their gate access codes 10 minutes ago. You what? Julian screamed. You can't do that. That's sabotage. It's property management, I said cold. I have a strict policy against unauthorized commercial activity on my residential properties, especially when the tenants haven't paid the rent. I tapped the tablet one last time. The lights went out completely. The only illumination came from the dying embers in the fireplace and the blue glow of my screen. The heating system is now fully off, I announced in the darkness. It's currently 10 degrees below zero outside. The interior temperature will drop to freezing in about 40 minutes. You're going to freeze us to death? My mother shrieked in the dark. No, I said. I'm giving you a choice. The same choice you gave me. A choice? My father stammered in the dark. I could see his breath now, forming small white clouds in the rapidly cooling air. The mansion was built with stone and glass. Without the heating system I designed specifically to counter the altitude, it became an icebox within minutes. Yes, I said, the blue light of my tablet illuminating my face from below. Choice A. You pay the outstanding balance for the rental, the catering, and the damages. That comes to roughly $62,000. If the transaction clears, I'll turn the heat back on, and you can stay until morning. Then you leave. We don't have that kind of liquidity right now, Julian whispered, shivering in his velvet jacket. I told you the funds are tied up. Then we go to choice B, I said calmly. You leave. Now. It's a blizzard, my mother shrieked, clutching her shawl tight. You can't throw your own mother out in a blizzard. We'll freeze. The Range Rover won't make it down the driveway without the heated pavers turned on. Ah, right, I said. I turned those off too. Energy conservation. This is attempted murder, my father shouted, though his teeth were chattering. There is a choice C, I interrupted. The same choice you offered me 10 minutes ago. They went silent. They knew exactly what I was going to say. The garage, I said. It has a separate heating unit. It's insulated. There's a bathroom and a cot. It's a bit cramped for 4 people, but it's warm. If you want to stay on the property tonight without paying, that's where you sleep. My mother looked at the table, laden with the cold luxury dinner they hadn't finished. Then she looked at the dark, looming shadows of the great hall. I am not sleeping in a garage, she hissed. I am a Swanson. Then you're a frozen Swanson, I said, turning away. I'm going to the master suite. It has a fireplace. And I'm locking the door to the main house in 5 minutes. If you're still in here, I call the sheriff. And unlike the platinum concierge, the sheriff actually answers my calls. I walked up the grand staircase, my heavy boots echoing on the steps. I didn't look back. I heard them arguing. I heard my mother crying. I heard Julian cursing. 5 minutes later, from the balcony of the master bedroom, I watched through the glass. The front door opened. A blast of snow swirled into the foyer. My family, my father in his expensive loafers, my mother in her silk dress, and Julian in his velvet, trudged out into the storm. They didn't go to the garage. Their pride wouldn't let them. They climbed into their rented Range Rover. I watched the headlights flicker on. I watched the wheels spin uselessly on the icy, unheated driveway for 10 minutes. They slid backward, almost hitting a pine tree. Finally, the headlights turned off. They weren't going anywhere. Then I saw the interior light of the car turn on. They were huddled together inside the vehicle, engine running, waiting out the storm in the driveway of the mansion they pretended to own. I picked up the house phone and dialed the gatehouse. Security, a voice answered. Hey Mike, I said. There's a vehicle idling in the driveway. They're unauthorized, but let them stay until the plow comes in the morning. Just make sure they don't try to come back inside. Copy that, Mr. Swanson. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mike. I sat in the leather armchair by the fire, poured myself a glass of the vintage bourbon my father had opened but never tasted, and watched the snow fall. It was the quietest, most peaceful night of my life. Epilogue. 10 months later. The launch party for Obsidian Heights, our new eco-resort in Patagonia, was in full swing. The room was filled with actual investors, tech moguls, and people who created things rather than just consuming them. I was standing by the bar when my assistant, Sarah, handed me a tablet. "We have a flag on an application for the junior sales associate role," she said. "The algorithm rejected it, but since the last name matched yours, it kicked it to manual review." I looked at the screen. Applicant, Julian Swanson. Previous experience, VP of Swanson Holdings. Dissolved. Current employment, rideshare driver. I stared at the photo. Julian looked tired. His hair wasn't gelled. He looked older. "Do you want to interview him?" Sarah asked. "Family preference?" I thought about the garage. I thought about the black sheep. I thought about the years of exclusion. "No," I said, handing the tablet back. "Treat him like any other applicant. If he meets the criteria, hire him. If he doesn't, don't." "He doesn't meet the criteria," Sarah noted. "He lacks the technical certification." "Then send the standard rejection letter," I said. "And your parents?" she asked gently. She knew the story. "Your father sent another email to the corporate inbox. He's asking for a loan against the family name." "The family name has no value, Sarah," I said, taking a sip of sparkling water. "Tell him the bank is closed." I walked out onto the balcony. The wind was warm here in the southern hemisphere. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my real family, the friends I had made in the trenches, the developers who slept in the office with me during crunch time, the people who loved me when I had nothing. "Group dinner in 10 minutes. We saved you a seat." I smiled. "I'm on my way," I whispered. I didn't need a mansion to feel rich. But owning one certainly made the view better when I finally closed the door on the past.
Next story in 3, 2, 1.
The crystal flute in my hand felt fragile, like it might shatter under the pressure of my grip. I wasn't squeezing it out of nervousness. I was squeezing it to keep from throwing it across the room. We were at the Aurora Grand Hall, the venue chosen for the annual gala of Vanguard Tech, the company where I had worked as a senior analyst for 5 years. But tonight wasn't about the company. Tonight was, apparently, the coronation of Derek Vance. Derek stood in the center of the room, holding court. He was wearing a tuxedo that was a shade too blue, laughing too loudly at his own jokes. He was the regional director, a man who built his career on stealing ideas and stepping on fingers. And hanging onto his arm, looking more radiant than I had seen her in years, was my wife, Elena. She wasn't just standing next to him. She was leaning into him. Her hand was resting casually, possessively, on his bicep. She laughed at his joke, a joke I knew she had heard a dozen times, and tilted her head back, exposing the diamond necklace I had bought her for our 10th anniversary. "Look at them," a colleague whispered next to me. It was Sarah from accounting. She looked at me with pity. "Mark, do you want to go outside? Get some air." "I'm fine, Sarah," I said, my voice flat. "I'm just admiring the view." "Mark." Derek's voice boomed across the room. The conversation circle parted like the Red Sea. He waved me over with a dismissive flick of his wrist, like he was summoning a waiter. "Come here, buddy. Come celebrate." I walked over. The walk felt like it took an hour. I could feel the eyes of 300 employees on me. They knew. Everyone knew. In a corporate environment, secrets travel faster than fiber optics. They knew my wife was sleeping with the boss to secure his promotion and her own status. "What can I do for you, Derek?" I asked, stopping just outside his personal space. "Doesn't she look gorgeous tonight?" Derek asked, sliding his arm around Elena's waist. He squeezed her. Elena didn't flinch. She smiled. A cold, practiced smile. "She looks lovely," I said. "She's been a great support," Derek said, winking at the crowd. "Behind every great man, right? She's been helping me prep for the board meeting tomorrow." The big reveal. When they announce me as the new VP of Operations, I owe half of it to this lady right here. To the new VP, someone shouted. Glasses clinked. Elena finally looked at me. Her eyes were hard. There was no love there. There hadn't been for a long time. There was only calculation. Mark, she said, her voice dropping so only the immediate circle could hear. Can you hold my purse? It's heavy. She shoved her clutch into my chest. I caught it by reflex. Thanks, sweetie, she said, turning her back on me to whisper something in Derek's ear. Laughter. Ripples of it. The husband holding the purse while the wife flirts with the boss. It was a scene straight out of a high school nightmare, but played out with six-figure salaries. I turned and walked toward the balcony. I needed air. The smell of Derek's expensive, musky cologne mixed with the scent of roasted lamb was making me nauseous. I stepped out into the cool night air. The city lights of Chicago sprawled out below us. It was beautiful. It was expensive. It was exactly the kind of life Elena wanted. The glass door behind me slid open. I didn't turn around. I knew the sound of her heels. Click, clack, click. You're embarrassing me, Elena said. I turned slowly. She was standing there, arms crossed, the city wind catching her hair. I'm embarrassing you? I asked calmly. Elena, you're practically sitting in his lap in front of the entire division. I'm networking, Mark, she snapped. That's what successful people do. We build alliances. We secure futures. Something you wouldn't understand. Is that what we're calling it now? I asked. Networking? I found the hotel receipt in your jacket pocket last week, Elena. The Four Seasons. Tuesday afternoon. I was at work. You were networking? She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just sighed, as if I were a child who had asked a stupid question. Fine, she said. You know. Good. That saves me the trouble of the speech. She took a step closer, her face illuminated by the ambient light of the party inside. I'm leaving you, Mark, she said. Tonight. I'm not coming home. Derek has a suite upstairs. And tomorrow, after the announcement, we're looking for a condo downtown. Just like that? I asked. 10 years. Gone. 10 years of mediocrity, she spat. I gave you a chance, Mark. I waited for you to be more. But look at you. You're 40 years old and you're still an analyst. You push papers. You have no drive. You have no ambition. You're safe. And I am sick to death of safe. I supported you through law school, I reminded her gently. I paid your tuition. I worked double shifts. That was an investment, she shrugged. And it didn't pay off. Derek. Derek is a rocket ship. He's going to the C-suite. And he's taking me with him. I deserve to be on the winning team, Mark. I deserve a life that matters. You think Derek loves you? I asked. I think Derek loves winning, she said. And having me on his arm is a win. We understand each other. We're predators, Mark. You're prey. The door opened again. It was Derek. He looked flushed, a glass of scotch in his hand. Everything okay, out here, he asked, looking between us. He smirked. Mark, you're not upsetting the lady, are you? We were just saying, goodbye, Elena said, walking over to him. She took his arm again. Mark understands. He knows he can't compete. Derek laughed. He walked over to me, sloshing a bit of scotch on the balcony floor. Look, Mark, Derek said, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder. It's awkward, I get it. But let's be professionals. Actually, let's not. He leaned in close. His breath smelled of alcohol and arrogance. I was going to wait until Monday, Derek said. But since we're clearing the air, consider this your notice. My notice? I repeated. You're fired, Mark, Derek grinned. Termination for, let's call it cultural incompatibility. I can't have my girlfriend's ex-husband moping around the office. It kills the vibe. Pack your desk on Monday. Security will escort you out. Elena laughed. A cruel, tinkling sound. Oh, Derek. You're terrible. Just efficient, babe, he kissed her cheek. Go home, Mark. Take an Uber. I think your Corolla would lower the property value of the valet lot. They turned and walked back inside, arm in arm, ready to celebrate their victory. I stood alone on the balcony. I reached into my pocket. I didn't pull out a tissue. I pulled out my phone. I had a text message waiting. It was from a number saved as Sterling Acquisitions, CEO private line. The message read, "Transaction complete. The wire transfer has cleared. You now officially own 51% of Vanguard Tech. The board has been notified. They are waiting for your instruction regarding the management restructuring, scheduled for tomorrow morning." I looked at the message. Then I looked through the glass at Derek and Elena, who were now dancing in the center of the room. They looked so happy. So sure of themselves. They thought they were the predators. I typed a reply, confirm the meeting. 9 a.m. And ensure Derek Vance has a front row seat. I want to see his face. I put the phone away. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel broken. I felt like a hunter who had just set the trap and was watching the wolves walk right into it. I walked back into the party, placed Elena's heavy purse on a random waiter's tray, and walked out the front door. I didn't take an Uber. I walked around the corner to where my driver was waiting in the Maybach I usually kept garaged to avoid suspicion. "Home, sir?" the driver asked. "No, James," I said, leaning back into the leather seats. "Take me to the office. I have some paperwork to prepare for my new employees." The conference room A on the top floor of Vanguard Tech was designed to intimidate. It was a glass cage suspended 40 stories above the street, with a table made of black granite that looked less like furniture and more like a tombstone. At 8:55 a.m., Derek Vance was sitting at the head of that table. He was spinning a gold pen in his fingers, leaning back in the leather chair that belonged to the CEO. He looked like a king waiting for his crown. My wife, technically, still my wife for the next few legal weeks, sat in the chair to his right. She shouldn't have been there. She wasn't an employee. But Derek had insisted. "I want you there when they make it official, babe," he had said. "You're the first lady of ops now." The rest of the table was filled with the board of directors. 6 men and women in gray suits who looked tired, bored, and slightly agitated. They kept checking their phones. They knew something Derek didn't. I stood outside the glass doors, adjusting the cuffs of my suit. It wasn't the off-the-rack polyester blend I usually wore to blend in as an analyst. It was a bespoke Tom Ford, charcoal gray, tailored to the millimeter. I had stopped pretending. I swiped my keycard. The reader chirped a cheerful green beep. I pushed the heavy glass doors open. The sound of Derek's laughter cut off instantly. He looked up, his smile twisting into a sneer of genuine annoyance. "Jesus, Mark," Derek groaned, dropping his pen on the granite. "I thought I told you. You're terminated. Security was supposed to revoke your access. Did you tailgate someone in here? That's trespassing." Elena didn't look at me. She looked down at her notepad, tracing circles with a pen. She looked embarrassed for me. "I'm not here to cause a scene, Derek," I said calmly, closing the door behind me. The latch clicked shut with a heavy, final sound. "I'm here for the 9 a.m. meeting." "The meeting is for executives," Derek laughed, looking around the table for support. "Can someone call security? Seriously. This is pathetic." He's obviously having a breakdown. Nobody moved. The board members sat like statues, their eyes fixed on the center of the table. "Mark, please," Elena hissed, finally looking up. Her eyes were cold, pleading with me to salvage whatever dignity she thought I had left. "Just go. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You're fired." Accept it. Go home and... I don't know, update your resume. I don't need a resume, Elena, I said. I walked past the empty chairs at the foot of the table and continued walking toward the head. Toward Derek. Stop walking, Derek stood up. He was a big man, used to using his size to intimidate subordinates. I said get out. You're done. You're a nobody. An analyst. A bug on my windshield. Actually, a voice spoke up from the side of the room. It was Mr. Henderson, the chairman of the board. A man of few words and immense power. He stood up slowly, smoothing his tie. Mr. Vance, Henderson said, his voice dry as dust. Please sit down. Mr. Henderson? Derek looked confused, his aggression faltering. I was just handling this, intruder. I apologize. Security is lax these days. One of the first things I'll fix as VP of Operations. Sit down, Derek, Henderson repeated. It wasn't a request. Derek slowly sank back into the chair, his eyes darting between me and the chairman. I don't understand. Why is he here? He is here, Henderson said, gesturing to me, because he called the meeting. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning unit. You could hear the traffic 40 stories down. You could hear Derek's heart rate rising. He called the meeting? Derek laughed nervously. Good one, sir. But seriously, Mark is an analyst. He reports to a manager who reports to a director who reports to me. Not anymore, I said. I reached the head of the table. I stood right next to Derek. I looked down at him. For 5 years, I had looked down at my shoes when he spoke. Today, I looked him in the eye. You're sitting in my chair, Derek, I said softly. Your chair? Derek scoffed, though his voice wavered. This is the CEO's chair. Old man Sterling retired last week. He didn't retire, I corrected him. He sold. To a private holding company called Apex Strategies. Derek blinked. I know. I saw the memo. I'm meeting the rep from Apex today to sign my contract. Apex Strategies, I continued, unbuttoning my jacket and resting my hands on the table, is a sole proprietorship. It belongs to a silent investor who made a fortune in early cryptocurrency adoption and algorithmic trading software 10 years ago. An investor who decided to work a low-level job at a tech firm to understand the industry from the ground up before buying it. I leaned closer. I am Apex Strategies, Derek. Derek's face went through 5 stages of grief in 3 seconds. Denial. Anger. Confusion. Fear. And finally, a pale, sickly realization. Elena made a sound, a sharp intake of breath that sounded like a sob. She dropped her pen. It clattered loudly on the granite. No, she whispered. That's impossible. We checked your accounts. During the divorce prep. You have a savings account with $12,000 and a checking account with $3,000. I have personal accounts with that amount, I nodded at her. Because I live modestly. But Apex? Apex is a corporate entity. And its assets are substantial. I looked at the board. Mr. Henderson, if you would? Henderson slid a thick document across the table. It landed in front of Derek. The acquisition was finalized at midnight, Henderson stated formally. Mr. Mark is the majority shareholder and the new acting CEO of Vanguard Tech. All executive decisions now defer to him. Derek looked at the document. He looked at the signature at the bottom. Mark A. Sullivan, CEO. You. Derek stammered. He looked at me, searching for the weak, submissive employee he had bullied for years. He didn't find him. You played us. You were a spy. I was an employee, I said. I did my job. I filed my reports. And I watched. I watched you steal credit for Sarah's work in accounting. I watched you harass the interns. I watched you pad your expense reports with the client dinners that were actually dates with my wife. I turned to Elena. She was shaking. Her hand was covering her mouth. I watched you too, Elena, I said. I watched you treat the waiters at the company gala like dirt. I watched you laugh when Derek fired me. I wanted to see who you really were when you thought I had nothing. Mark, Elena choked out. She stood up, her chair scraping. She reached out a hand to touch my arm, the same arm she had ignored last night. Mark, listen. You have to understand. I was pushed. I was confused. Derek manipulated me. He told me you were holding me back. Sit down, Elena, I said coldly. I'm not finished. She sat. She looked like a child being scolded. Now, I said, turning back to Derek. Let's talk about your promotion. Derek straightened up, a glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. The survival instinct of a corporate sociopath is a fascinating thing. He thought he could pivot. He thought he could negotiate. Right, Derek cleared his throat. Okay. Wow. You're the boss. Well played, Mark. Seriously. Respect. Look, we have history, but business is business. You need a VP of Ops who knows the lay of the land. I know this company better than anyone. I can run the day-to-day while you handle the strategy. We can be a hell of a team. He smiled. It was the smile of a man trying to sell a car with no engine. I do need a VP of Ops, I agreed. Someone with integrity. Someone who inspires the team. Exactly, Derek nodded vigorously. That's me. No, Derek, I said. That's Sarah from accounting. Sarah. Derek's jaw dropped. She's a bean counter. She has no vision. She has honesty, I said. Which brings me to the audit. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket and placed it on the table. Last night, after you fired me, I came back to the office, I said. I didn't pack my desk. I accessed the executive server with my new clearance codes. I found that as shadow accounts you've been running for the last 2 years. The color drained from Derek's face so fast he looked like a corpse. The vendor kickbacks? I asked. The inflated invoices for consulting fees paid to a shell company registered in your brother's name? It totals about $400,000, Derek. The board members gasped. Henderson looked furious. That's a misunderstanding, Derek whispered. I can't explain. You can explain it to the police, I said. They are waiting in the lobby. Police? Derek squeaked. Embezzlement is a felony, Derek, I said, checking my watch. And since you used company wire transfers, it's federal. I believe the FBI calls it a wire fraud, I pointed to the door. Get out of my chair. Derek didn't move. He looked paralyzed. Now. I shouted. The volume made Elena jump. Derek scrambled up. He looked around the room, wild-eyed. Elena? Elena, tell him. We did this together. You helped me set up the accounts. The room froze again. I turned to Elena slowly. She was staring at Derek with pure hatred. You liar, she screamed. I didn't know anything about the money. I just wanted the promotion. She signed the incorporation papers for the shell company, Derek spat, looking at me. If I go down, she goes down. She's the registered agent. Is that true, Elena? I asked. Elena looked at me, tears streaming down her face, tears of terror, not remorse. I didn't know it was illegal, Mark. He told me it was a tax optimization strategy. I just signed what he gave me. Please, you have to believe me. I'm your wife. My wife? I laughed. Last night, on the balcony, you told me I was a prey. You told me I was a mediocre. You were leaving me for the rocket ship. I looked at Derek, then at Elena. Well, I said. The rocket ship is crashing. And you're both strapped in. The double doors opened. 2 agents in windbreakers marked FBI stepped in. Derek Vance, one of them asked. Derek slumped. He looked broken. He let them handcuff him without a fight. As they dragged him out, he looked back at Elena. Call my lawyer. I don't have a lawyer, she screamed back. The agents left with Derek. The room was quiet again. Elena stood there, trembling. She looked at the board members, who were deliberately looking away. Then she looked at me. She smoothed her dress, wiped her eyes, and tried to compose herself. She took a step toward me. Mark, she said softly, using her seductional voice, the one she used when she wanted me to buy her jewelry. Okay. This is a lot. But he's gone now. It's just us. We can fix this. I can help you run this place. We're a team, remember? 10 years. You want to stay? I asked. Yes, she nodded eagerly. I want to be by your side. Where I belong. Okay, I said. You can stay. Her face lit up. Really? Yes, I smiled. But not here. Not in this office. Not in my house. I picked up the phone on the conference table and dialed a number. Security? Yes, this is the CEO. I have a trespasser in the boardroom. A non-employee. Please escort Ms. Elena out of the building. And revoke her guest pass permanently. Elena's jaw dropped. Mark, no. You can't. I have nowhere to go. I gave up my apartment lease this morning because Derek promised we were moving downtown. Sounds like a bad investment, I said, turning my back on her to look out the window at the city below. Maybe you should have bet on the prey. The security guards were polite but firm. They didn't drag Elena kicking and screaming, that would have been too dramatic, too dignified for the situation. Instead, they simply flanked her, one on each side, like she was a shoplifter caught stealing cheap perfume. You can't do this, she hissed at them as they guided her toward the elevator. I am the CEO's wife. I have rights. We have orders, ma'am, the guard replied, pressing the lobby button. I didn't watch her leave. I turned back to the conference table. The board members were silent, staring at me with a mix of awe and terror. They were wondering who was next. Gentlemen, ladies, I said, buttoning my jacket. I apologize for the theatricality. But sometimes, a tumor needs to be removed publicly to ensure the rest of the body knows the infection is gone. Agreed, Henderson said, nodding slowly. Mr. Vance, he fooled us all. He fooled you because you weren't looking, I corrected him. You were looking at profits, not principles. That changes today. I looked over at the corner of the room where Sarah from accounting was standing. She had been summoned during the chaos to provide the financial files. She was clutching a binder to her chest, looking terrified. Sarah, I said. She jumped. Why yes, Mr. Sullivan? You caught the discrepancy in Q3 last year, didn't you? I asked. The vendor invoices. You flagged them. I did, she stammered. But Derek told me I was mistaken. He said it was a glitch. You weren't mistaken, I said. You were the only person in this building doing your job. That's why you're the new interim VP of operations. Sarah's eyes went wide. Me? But I'm just a senior accountant. And yesterday, I was just an analyst, I smiled. Titles are irrelevant. Competence is everything. Take Derek's office. Burn the furniture if you want. Just get the books clean. Yes, sir, she beamed, standing a little taller. I walked out of the conference room and down the hall to my old desk, the cubicle in the bullpen. My cardboard box was still there, half-packed from when I had mentally prepared to leave. I picked up a framed photo from the desk. It was a picture of me and Elena from 5 years ago, smiling on a beach in Mexico. We looked happy. Or at least, I did. Looking closer now, I could see her eyes wandering, looking past the camera, looking for something better. I took the photo out of the frame. I dropped the picture into the shredder bin. I kept the frame. It was good quality wood. I could put something else in it. Maybe a picture of my dog. Or just a blank piece of paper. Anything was more honest than that smile. Epilogue, 8 months later. The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue was crowded, the morning rush in full swing. I stood in line, checking the stock ticker on my phone. Vanguard Tech was up 22% since the restructuring. The ethical rebranding had worked. Clients liked transparency. Next, the barista called out. I stepped up to the counter. Large black coffee, please. That will be $5 and... The voice trailed off. The hand holding the scanner froze. I looked up from my phone. It was Elena. She was wearing a green apron that was stained with espresso. Her hair, usually perfectly blown out, was pulled back in a messy, frizzy ponytail. She looked tired. Not the tired of a socialite who partied too late, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone working minimum wage to pay rent. "Mark," she whispered. I looked at her. I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just the mild surprise of seeing someone you used to know from a past life. "Hello, Elena," I said politely. "Just the coffee, please." "Mark, wait," she said, leaning over the counter. Her eyes were desperate. I heard about the company. You're on the cover of Fortune this month. The undercover tycoon, I thought. It was a good article, I said, tapping my card on the reader. Beep. I'm living in a studio in Queens, she rushed the words out, ignoring the line of angry customers forming behind me. Derek testified against me. He told the feds I was the mastermind. I lost my license, Mark. I can't practice law. I'm working double shifts here just to buy groceries. That sounds difficult, I said, taking the receipt. It is, she hissed. Mark, please. I know I messed up. But punishment is supposed to end, right? Can't you help me? Just a loan? Or a job? I could work in legal at Vanguard? I know the files. I looked at her one last time. I thought about the balcony. I thought about the word pray. We don't hire people with a criminal record, Elena, I said calmly. It's a new company policy. Cultural incompatibility. Mark, she cried out as I grabbed my cup. I was your wife. I stopped and turned back. No, I said. You were an investor. And you sold your shares at the bottom of the market. I walked out of the shop and onto the busy street. A black town car was waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door. To the office, Mr. Sullivan? Yes, James, I said, getting in. And take the long way. I want to enjoy the view. As the car pulled away, I saw Elena through the window of the coffee shop. She was being yelled at by her manager for holding up the line. She put her head down and started scrubbing the counter. I rolled up the tinted window. The city looked bright today.
If you think you've seen it all, hold on tight, because the last two are absolutely savage.
The funeral service had ended only 2 hours ago. The dirt on my father's grave was still loose, dark, and fresh. Yet, as I pulled my truck into the driveway of the farmhouse where I had spent every day of the last 5 years, there was already a foreign object on the lawn. A wooden stake. A sign. Pending listing. I stared at it. The audacity was breathless. My sister, Brenda, hadn't visited Dad in 3 years. She hadn't been there to change his sheets, to spoon-feed him soup when his hands shook too much, or to hold his hand during the terrifying nights of dementia-induced confusion. She had been too busy with her marketing firm in the city. But now that Arthur Miller was dead, she was the first one through the door. I walked into the house. The smell of Dad, tobacco, old books, and peppermint salve was already being assaulted by the scent of harsh chemical cleaners. Brenda was standing in the living room. She was wearing a black dress that was technically appropriate for morning but fit a little too tightly, like she was treating the wake as a networking event. She was pointing at the old stone fireplace while a man in a cheap suit took notes on an iPad. "The mantle has to go," Brenda said, waving a manicured hand. "It's too rustic. Buyers want modern farmhouse, not actual farmhouse. Rip it out. And these floors? Are they hardwood or laminate? If they're laminate, we need to relist 10 grand lower." "Brenda," I said, my voice rough from crying. "What are you doing?" She turned around, looking surprised to see me, as if I were a ghost haunting the hallway. "Oh, Lucas," she sighed, checking her watch. "You're back. I thought you were staying at the cemetery too." "I don't know. Commune with nature?" "I was burying our father," I said, stepping into the room. "Who is this?" "This is Mr. Tavish," she gestured to the man. "My realtor." "Well, our realtor, I suppose. Since we need to liquidate the estate quickly. I have a liquidity crunch with my condo renovations, and honestly, this place is a money pit. The sooner we sell, the sooner we can split the cash and move on." "Split the cash?" I asked. "We haven't even read the will. The lawyer is coming at 4 p.m. "The will is a formality," Brenda scoffed, walking over to inspect a crack in the wall. "I'm the eldest. Dad was traditional. Plus, let's be real, Lucas. You've been living here rent-free for 5 years. You've practically drained the estate already. It's only fair that I take the lead on the sale to recoup my share." Rent-free. The words echoed in my head. She didn't know. She didn't know that I had quit my job as a structural engineer to move back home when Dad got sick. She didn't know that living here meant sleeping on a cot in his room so I could wake up every 2 hours to give him medication. She didn't know that I had spent my entire savings account repairing the roof last winter because Dad's pension couldn't cover it. To her, I was a squatter, a loser brother who failed to launch. "You can't sell the house, Brenda," I said quietly. "Watch me," she replied, tapping a nail against the wall. "I've already listed it on the private market. Mr. Tavish says we can get $600,000 if we bulldoze the barn. It's an eyesore anyway. Dad built that barn," I said, feeling a surge of protective anger. "With his own hands. In 1975. And now it's termite food," she shrugged. "Sentimentality doesn't pay the bills, Lucas. You should know that. Look at you." She gestured to my clothes. I was wearing a simple black suit, slightly worn at the elbows. It was the only suit I owned. "I need you to start packing your things," Brenda continued, turning back to the realtor. "Mr. Tavish thinks we can stage the house by Monday. You can probably fit your stuff in your truck, right? You don't have much. Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, testing her. I wanted to see how deep the cruelty went. "I don't know," she said, sounding bored. "Maybe you can find a rooming house. Or go back to whatever construction job you had before you decided to mooch off Dad. You're a big boy, Lucas. Figure it out. Just be out by Sunday night. I'm changing the locks Monday morning." Changing the locks. The cruelty wasn't just deep, it was bottomless. She wasn't just selling the house. She was erasing me. She was erasing the last 5 years of sacrifice as if they meant nothing. I looked at Mr. Tavish. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Ma'am," Tavish said softly, "maybe we should wait for the legal reading, just to be sure the title is clear." "The title is clear," Brenda snapped. "My father owned this land for 40 years. He died. I am the executor named in his 2010 will. It's simple probate law. Don't complicate things, Tavish, or I'll find a realtor who has a spine." She turned back to me. "And you?" She pointed a finger at my chest. "Don't try anything funny. I know you manipulated Dad in his final days. I know you probably tried to get him to sign checks. But I have lawyers, Lucas. If you touched 1 dime of his accounts, I will sue you into oblivion." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just felt a strange, cold calm wash over me. It was the calm of a man holding a royal flush while his opponent bets the deed to their house on a pair of 2s. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. I felt the heavy, folded document resting against my ribs. It wasn't a check. It wasn't a will. It was something much stronger. "Okay, Brenda," I said softly. "Let's wait for the lawyer." Mr. Henderson will be here in 10 minutes. Fine, she rolled her eyes. But start packing your boxes while we wait. I don't want your clutter ruining the aesthetic when the photographer gets here. She walked away to the kitchen, shouting about the hideous yellow tile. I stood in the hallway. I looked at the picture of Dad hanging on the wall, the one taken before the sickness, when he was strong and smiling on his tractor. Don't worry, Dad, I thought. I promised I'd protect the farm, and I keep my promises. The doorbell rang. It was precisely 4 p.m. Mr. Henderson stood on the porch. He was a man of few words, carrying a briefcase that looked like it contained nuclear codes. He looked at the for sale sign on the lawn, frowned, and then looked at me. Good afternoon, Lucas, Henderson said. I see your sister has wasted no time. She works fast, I said. Speed is often the enemy of accuracy, Henderson muttered. Shall we? We walked into the dining room. Brenda was already seated at the head of the table, Dad's seat. She had a bottle of wine open. She didn't offer a glass to me or the lawyer. Let's get this over with, Brenda said, swirling her glass. Read the will. Tell Lucas he gets the old pickup truck and sign the release forms so I can sell this place. Henderson sat down. He placed his briefcase on the table. He didn't open it immediately. He looked at Brenda over the rim of his spectacles. Mrs. Brenda, Henderson said calmly, you are referring to the last will and testament dated August 2010. Obviously, Brenda said. That's the only will. It is the only will, Henderson agreed. Brenda smirked at me. See? I told you. In that will, I am the executor and the primary beneficiary. Lucas gets 10% of the liquid cash. I get the rest. And the house. That is correct, Henderson said. According to the 2010 document, the house belongs to the estate, and the estate belongs to you. Brenda clapped her hands. Boom. Done. Lucas, pack your bags. However, Henderson raised a finger. AWOL can only distribute assets that the deceased actually owned at the time of death. Brenda froze. What are you talking about? Dad owned this farm. He lived here until he died yesterday. He lived here. I spoke up, pulling the document from my pocket. As a tenant. A tenant. Brenda laughed, but it was a nervous, splintered sound. She looked at Henderson, then at me. That's absurd. Dad built this house. He lived here for 40 years. He didn't pay rent to anyone. He didn't pay rent, I said calmly, unfolding the document in my hand and smoothing it out on the table. He paid with trust. Something you wouldn't understand. I slid the paper across the mahogany toward her. This, Henderson announced, his voice projecting clearly, is a quitclaim deed, signed, notarized, and filed with the county clerk 3 years ago. Brenda snatched the paper. Her eyes scanned it frantically, looking for a loophole, a mistake, a forgery. Transfer of property. She mumbled, her face paling. From Arthur Miller to Lucas Miller. Consideration, $1. She looked up, her eyes bulging. $1? You stole it. You scammed a senile old man into giving you $1 million farm for $1. Dad wasn't senile 3 years ago, Brenda, I said. He was scared. He was drowning in debt. Did you know about the reverse mortgage he took out in 2018? Brenda blinked. What reverse mortgage? Of course you didn't, I said. You were too busy buying your condo. Dad took out a loan against the farm to pay for Mom's medical bills before she passed. By the time I moved back, the bank was threatening foreclosure. They were going to take the farm, the barn, everything. I pointed to the deed in her hand. I didn't steal the house, Brenda. I saved it. I used my entire 401k and my savings as a structural engineer to pay off the bank. I cleared the debt. In exchange, Dad insisted on transferring the title to me to ensure the bank couldn't touch it again. He retained a life estate, which meant he could live here until he died without worrying about losing his home. But, Brenda stammered, looking at Mr. Tavish, the realtor, who was now quietly packing up his iPad. Tavish, do something. This can't be legal. Actually, ma'am. Tavish murmured, backing away toward the door. If the deed is recorded, it supersedes the will. The property isn't part of the estate. It belongs to him. Tavish nodded at me. I'll go remove the sign from the lawn. You're not going anywhere. Brenda shrieked. Sit down. Tavish didn't sit. He bolted out the front door, realizing his commission check just evaporated. So, I said, leaning forward. To recap, I didn't live here rent-free. I owned the roof over Dad's head. I paid the taxes. I paid the insurance. And I paid for the nurses you refused to hire. You manipulated him. Brenda screamed, slamming her hand on the table. This is fraud. Undue influence. I'll sue you. I'll tie this property up in court for years. You won't be able to sell it. I don't want to sell it, I said softly. That's the difference between us, Brenda. You see a payday. I see a home. Whatever, she spat, composing herself. She smoothed her dress, trying to regain her predatory composure. Keep the stupid farm. It smells like manure anyway. I still have the rest of the estate. The 2010 will says I get the residue. The investments. The cash accounts. Dad was frugal. I know he had at least $200,000 in savings. She turned to Henderson with a smug smile. Fine. Lucas gets the dirt. I'll take the cash. How much is in the liquid accounts, Mr. Henderson? Cut me a check so I can leave this dump. Henderson cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable. He opened a second folder in his briefcase. Mrs. Brenda, Henderson said gently. As I mentioned, the will distributes what remains in the estate. However, the cost of end-of-life care for a dementia patient is astronomical. What do you mean? Brenda narrowed her eyes. Full-time nursing care, I explained. Specialized medication, hospital stays, physical therapy. It costs about $10,000 a month, Brenda, for 3 years. But insurance, she started. Medicare covers basics, Henderson corrected. It doesn't cover 24-hour in-home care. And Lucas refused to put Arthur in a state nursing home. He insisted on keeping him here, in his own bed, as per Arthur's wishes. So, Brenda demanded, how much is left? Henderson slid a bank statement across the table. The primary checking account currently has a balance of $412, Henderson read. The savings account was closed 6 months ago to pay for the final round of dialysis. Brenda stared at the statement. The paper shook in her hands. $400? She whispered. That's it. That's my inheritance. Not exactly, Henderson said. There are also outstanding liabilities. The funeral costs, for example. Since you are the executor named in the will, and you insisted on taking the lead, the funeral home will be billing you directly. The cost is roughly $12,000. I have to pay. Brenda shrieked. I have to pay for the funeral when he gets the house. That is how probate works, Henderson nodded. Debts are settled by the estate. Since the estate is insolvent, the executor is responsible for managing the liquidation of any remaining assets, like the used 2005 Buick in the driveway, to cover the debts. I watched Brenda. Her face went through a spectrum of colors, red, purple, and finally, a ghostly pale. I came here for a payout, she hissed, tears of rage springing to her eyes. I have contractors waiting on a check for my kitchen remodel. I leveraged my credit cards expecting this inheritance. You counted your chickens before they hatched, Brenda, I said. And you didn't even bother to visit the hen house to see if the fox had been there. This is your fault, she screamed at me. You spent his money. You drained him dry. I spent his money keeping him alive. I shouted back, finally losing my cool. I stood up, knocking my chair back. I spent it on keeping him comfortable, on making sure he knew he was loved. While you were buying granite countertops, I was changing diapers, Brenda. So don't you dare talk to me about draining him dry. You drained his heart. I just drained his bank account to keep it beating. The room fell silent. My shout echoed off the walls of the house I now officially owned. Brenda looked at me with pure hatred. She grabbed her purse. I'm leaving, she said icily. And don't expect me to pay for the funeral. Let the state bury him. He's already buried, Brenda, I said. I paid for it. With my own money. Because unlike you, I don't send the bill to a dead man. She froze at the door. But, I added, checking my watch. Since you brought it up, let's talk about the locks. What about them? She snapped. You said you were going to change them on Monday to kick me out, I said. I decided to be proactive. I called a locksmith. He's in the driveway right now. I pointed out the window. A van marked AL's lock and key was pulling up next to her BMW. He's not here to keep me out, I said. He's here to make sure you can't get back in. You have 5 minutes to collect your purse and your coat. Anything else you leave behind, I'm donating to charity. Charity, Brenda scoffed, clutching her designer purse like a shield. You wouldn't dare. Whatever is in this house, furniture, heirlooms, jewelry, that is personal property. That is part of the estate residue. And since you just gleefully informed me that the accounts are empty, I am taking my share in hard assets. She scanned the room frantically, her eyes darting like a trapped animal looking for an escape route. Her gaze landed on the antique mahogany hutch in the corner. "Mom's silver," she whispered. "The sterling silver service for 12. It's worth at least 5 grand. I'm taking it." She marched over to the hutch and yanked the drawers open. Clatter. The drawer didn't slide out smoothly with the weight of heavy silver. It rattled. It was light. Brenda stared into the drawer. It was empty, save for a few stray felt liners. "Where is it?" she shrieked, spinning around to face me. "Where is the silver? Did you steal that too?" "I sold it," I said calmly, leaning against the doorframe. 2 years ago, to pay for Dad's insulin and the property taxes. You sold Mom's silver?" She looked horrified, not because of the sentimental value, but because her payday had vanished. "I sold everything, Brenda," I said, walking into the room and pointing around. "The vintage shotgun collection? Sold to pay for the wheelchair ramp. The coin collection? Sold to pay for the oxygen tank. The paintings? Sold to fix the septic tank so Dad could flush the toilet." I stopped in front of her. "You see a house," I said. "I see a shell. I stripped this place to the studs to keep the man inside it alive. There is nothing left here but the walls, the roof, and the memories. And since you don't care about the memories, you leave with nothing." Brenda stood there, her chest heaving. She looked at the empty drawer. She looked at me. For a second, I saw the realization hit her, the sheer magnitude of what it had cost to keep our father comfortable. But then, the selfishness returned. It always does with people like her. "You're lying," she hissed. "You hid it. You're hoarding it. Check the barn if you want," I said. "But be careful. The termites you mentioned are real." The sound of a drill echoed from the front door. Whir. The locksmith was already working. "Time's up, Brenda," I said. "Al works fast." She let out a scream of frustration, a primal, childish sound. She grabbed a crystal vase from the mantelpiece, one of the few things left, and raised it, as if to smash it on the floor. "Don't," I warned. "That's the vase Dad bought Mom for their 25th anniversary. If you break it, I will call the sheriff and press charges for destruction of private property. Remember? It's my property." She hesitated. Her hand trembled. Then, realizing she had no power left, she slammed the vase back onto the mantel. It wobbled, but didn't fall. "I hate you," she whispered. "I hope you rot in this money pit." "Goodbye, Brenda," I said. She stormed out of the house, pushing past Mr. Henderson, past the locksmith, and out into the gray afternoon. I watched from the window as she got into her BMW. She reversed aggressively, running over the "for sale" sign she had planted earlier. The wooden stake snapped with a satisfying crack. I watched her speed away until her taillights disappeared around the bend. Mr. Henderson closed his briefcase. "Well," the lawyer said, adjusting his hat. "That went about as well as expected. I'll file the final probate paperwork. Since the estate debts exceed the assets, she'll likely resign as executor within the week to avoid the headache. It will default to you. Let her deal with the funeral bill first," I said. She insisted on ordering the most expensive casket. Henderson allowed himself a small, dry chuckle. "Indeed. Good luck, Lucas. It's a fine piece of land." "It is," I agreed. I walked out to the porch. The locksmith handed me a shiny new brass key. "All set, Mr. Miller," Al said. "New deadbolts on all doors." "Thanks, Al." I stood on the porch, holding the key. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows over the fields. The farm was quiet. No construction noise. No bickering. Just the wind in the trees. I looked at the broken "for sale" sign on the lawn. I walked over, pulled the splintered wood from the earth, and tossed it into the back of my truck. Then I sat on the porch steps, took a deep breath of fresh air, and finally, for the first time in 5 years, I didn't have to listen for the sound of a medical alarm. I missed him, but I was glad he was home. And now, so was I? Epilogue, 10 months later. The smell of sawdust and fresh coffee filled the barn. It wasn't a termite-infested eyesore anymore. I had spent the last year renovating it. The structural beams were reinforced, the roof was new, and the sunlight streamed through the skylights I had installed. It was now the headquarters of Miller Structural Consulting. After word got out about how I saved the farm, neighbors started asking for help with their own barns, their own renovations. I didn't need to go back to the city. The work came to me. I sat at my drafting table, looking over blueprints for a community center. My dog, a rescue golden retriever named Barnaby, was sleeping at my feet. My phone buzzed. I checked the screen. It was an email from Brenda. Subject, settlement? Lucas, look, the funeral home is threatening to sue me. The credit card companies are calling. I can't pay the 12 grand. Can we work something out? Maybe a loan against the house. We're family. Please. I looked at the message. I thought about the for sale sign on the fresh grave. I thought about the empty silver drawer. I typed a reply. Brenda, I suggest you sell the BMW. It should cover the funeral costs. As for the loan, I'm afraid my assets are tied up. I'm restoring the mantle you wanted to rip out. I hit send. Then I blocked the address. I walked outside. The corn was high in the fields. The house stood strong against the blue sky, its fresh coat of white paint gleaming. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a penthouse. It was a money pit, a lot of work and endless maintenance. But it was mine, and it was not for sale.
Next story in 3, 2, 1.
The sound arrived before he did. It wasn't just an engine. It was a carefully orchestrated announcement of superiority. A guttural, high-pitched scream of 12 cylinders tearing through the quiet, suburban hum of our family estate. The gravel in the driveway crunched violently as the tires bit into the stones, kicking up dust that settled on the polished hoods of the modest sedans and SUVs parked nearby. Everyone froze. My aunt lowered her glass of cheap Chardonnay. My cousins stopped their polite bickering about college tuition. All eyes turned to the entrance as the machine prowled into view. It was a Ferrari 812 Superfast. Rosso Corsa red. A cliché, perhaps, but effective. It gleamed under the afternoon sun like a fresh wound, demanding attention, demanding awe. The driver knew exactly what he was doing, revving the engine one last unnecessary time before killing the ignition, leaving a ringing silence in the air that felt heavier than the noise itself. The door swung up, and out stepped Julian. He adjusted his sunglasses, though the sun was already dipping behind the oaks. His suit was tailored to within an inch of its life, likely costing more than what I spent on rent in a year. Or so he wanted everyone to believe. He didn't look at the crowd immediately. He looked at the car, running a hand along the roofline as if checking for dust motes, performing a ritual of ownership for an audience of hungry relatives. "Did you rob a bank, son?" My father bellowed, his voice booming with a pride he had never once wasted on me. He walked towards Julian with open arms, bypassing me completely, though I was standing right next to the cooler, holding a beer I hadn't opened yet. "Investment banking, Dad. It's a bull market if you know where to grab the horns." Julian laughed, the sound practiced and hollow. He embraced our father, then our mother, who was practically vibrating with validation. This was her moment as much as his. Her golden boy had returned, clad in Italian wool and driving Italian steel. I stayed back, leaning against the porch railing. I wore a simple polo and jeans. No watch, no branded shoes. To them, I was exactly what they expected me to be, the background noise. The scenery. Julian finally turned his gaze toward the rest of us. He scanned the faces, drinking in the envy, until his eyes landed on me. The smirk that curled his lip was reflex. It was the same expression he'd worn when we were 12, and he'd framed me for breaking the neighbor's window. "Alex," he called out, his voice carrying that patronizing lilt he'd perfected over 3 decades. "Help me with the trunk, will you? I brought some real champagne. I figured the swill you guys bought wouldn't cut it for a celebration like this." The insult was casual, tossed out like a coin to a beggar. I didn't flinch. I just set my beer down and walked over. As I approached the car, the heat radiating from the engine bay hit my legs. I knew this car. Not this specific one, but the model. I knew the specs, the torque curve, the exact stitching pattern of the leather seats. I knew the faulty sensor in the fuel injection system that tended to plague this specific production year, if not serviced correctly. "Careful with the paint," Julian snapped as I reached for the latch. "That finish costs more than your car." "It's a wrap, Julian," I said quietly, my finger brushing the edge of the panel where the vinyl was peeling just a fraction of a millimeter. He froze, his eyes narrowing behind the sunglasses. "Excuse me?" "Nothing," I said, lifting the case of Dom Perignon from the small trunk. "Nice color." He snatched the keys from his pocket and dangled them in front of my face for a second too long. "Keep dreaming, little brother. Maybe if you pick up a few extra shifts at whatever garage you're sweeping floors at, you can rent one for an hour on your birthday." My mother appeared at his elbow, linking her arm through his. Don't tease him, Julian. Not everyone has your ambition. Alex is happy with his simple life. Aren't you, Alex? Her tone was sweet, but the words were acid. It was the narrative they had constructed years ago to justify their neglect. Julian was the ambitious genius. Alex was the simpleton who liked to get his hands dirty. I'm fine, Mom, I said, turning away to carry the boxes to the patio. As I walked, I could hear them whispering behind me. He looks tired, my aunt muttered. He looks poor, my uncle corrected with a chuckle. I set the boxes down on the table, feeling the familiar tightening in my chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was an old, dull ache. The ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, all wrapped up in a family reunion I hadn't wanted to attend. The flashback hit me then, triggered by the smell of the champagne corks popping. 15 years ago, the kitchen table. We can't afford to send both of you to private universities, my father had said, not even looking up from his newspaper. Julian has the grades. He has the potential for law, for business. He's going to make something of this family name. I got into the engineering program. I had argued, my voice cracking. I have a partial scholarship. And who pays the rest, Alex? My mother had interjected, slamming the dishwasher shut. We need to invest in the sure thing. Julian is the sure thing. You can go to community college. Learn a trade. Mechanics make decent money, don't they? You like cars. Go fix them. They liquidated my college fund to pay for Julian's frat dues and his first failed startup. When that failed, they refinanced the house to cover his networking trips to Europe. When I started working as a detailer at a high-end dealership, washing the mud off Range Rovers for minimum wage, they stopped mentioning me in their Christmas letters. I became the dirty secret, the blue-collar stain on their white-collar aspirations. But they didn't know what happened in the silence. They didn't know that while Julian was partying in Ibiza on borrowed money, I was staying late at the shop, learning the business. They didn't know I moved from detailing to sales, from sales to management, and from management to ownership. They saw grease under my fingernails because they never looked closely enough to see it was gone. Back in the present, the sun had set, and the patio lights were humming. Julian was holding court, a glass of champagne in one hand, the other gesturing wildly as he recounted a deal he'd closed last week. So I told the CEO, Julian shouted, making sure the cousins in the back could hear. If you want the best, you pay for the best. Boom. $2 million commission. Just like that. The family gasped. My father clapped him on the back, beaming. That's my boy. That's the bloodline. I stood in the shadows near the grill, flipping burgers because, naturally, the help was expected to cook. Julian sauntered over, swaying slightly. The alcohol was hitting him fast. He looked at the burgers, then at me. You know, he slurred slightly, leaning in close, his breath heavy with expensive grapes and rot. I actually feel bad for you sometimes. I didn't look up from the grill. Is that so? Yeah, really. I mean, look at you. 32 years old, and you're flipping meat while I'm driving a $250,000 car. It's gotta hurt. It's gotta eat you up inside. I'm doing okay, Julian. Okay, you're a loser, Alex. Let's be real. Mom and Dad know it. Everyone knows it. He laughed, a cruel, wet sound. Tell you what, since I'm feeling generous, why don't you go wash the Ferrari? It got a little dusty on the drive up. I'll give you $100. It's probably more than you make in a day. He pulled a crisp $100 bill from his pocket and crumpled it, tossing it onto the hot grill next to a burger. The paper curled and blackened instantly, catching fire. Oops. He smirked. Guess you're not fast enough. The crowd on the patio went silent, watching, waiting to see if the dog would bite or roll over. My father laughed nervously. Oh, Julian, you're terrible. I watched the money turn to ash. I looked at the car gleaming in the driveway. And then I looked at Julian. You really love that car, don't you, Julian? I asked, my voice steady, devoid of the shame he desperately wanted to see. It's not just a car, Alex. It's a statement. It says I made it. It says I own the road. It says something, all right. I replied. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. It buzzed with a notification I had been waiting for. An inventory alert. I looked him dead in the eyes. Enjoy the champagne, Julian. But you might want to check the glove box before you get too comfortable. There's usually a registration transfer form in there when a lease is about to default. Julian's smile faltered. What the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you didn't buy that car, Julian. I said, stepping away from the grill, the smoke swirling around me. And the dealership you leased it from? They have a very strict policy about clients who miss 3 consecutive payments. They usually send a repo team. Or, I paused, letting the silence stretch until it was painful. Or they call the owner. Julian stared at me, his mouth slightly open, the champagne glass tilting dangerously in his hand. For a second, the mask slipped. Fear flickered behind his eyes, a primal recognition of truth. But then, the ego kicked back in. The defense mechanism of a lifetime spent being told he was untouchable. He barked a laugh. It was loud, forced, and startled the crickets into silence. A repo? Listen to this guy. Julian turned to the crowd, spreading his arms wide, inviting them to join the mockery. My little brother, the grease monkey, thinks he knows how high-end leasing works. Alex, stick to changing oil filters. You don't understand leverage. You don't understand liquidity. I understand that you're 3 months behind, Julian, I said, my voice cutting through his laughter like a razor wire. I understand that your credit score just dipped below 580 this morning. And I understand that Prestige Automotive has been trying to reach you for weeks, but you blocked their number. My mother stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. She placed a protective hand on Julian's arm, glaring at me as if I were a stranger who had crashed the party. That is enough, Alex, she hissed. How dare you? How dare you try to humiliate your brother on his night? He's successful. He's a partner at his firm. Why are you so jealous? It's pathetic. It's not jealousy, Mom. It's math. Get out. My father growled, stepping off the porch. He looked ready to physically throw me off the property. If you can't show respect to your brother, get the hell out of my house. You've always been a disappointment, but this? Lying about Julian just to make yourself feel big? It's sick. I'm not lying, Dad. Go, he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at the driveway. Take your beat-up truck and go back to your trailer park or wherever you're living. We don't need your negative energy here. Julian regained his composure, smirking as he took a sip of his wine. Let him stay, Dad. It's entertaining. Let's hear his little fantasy. Go on, Alex. Tell us, how would you know anything about my lease? Did you break into the dealership to mop the floors? I took a slow breath, smelling the charcoal smoke and the expensive cologne masking Julian's sweat. This was it. The moment I had prepared for. The moment I had worked 80-hour weeks for. I tapped the screen of my phone and held it up. It wasn't a picture. It was a live app interface. A distinct, black and gold interface that only senior management access could display. VIN number ZFF812 ending in 592. I read aloud, scrolling down. Leaseholder, Julian Vance. Cosigner. Oh, that's interesting. There is no cosigner. That's why the interest rate is 22%. Ouch. Julian's face went from smug to gray in the span of a heartbeat. He recognized the app. He recognized the logo at the top of the screen. How? He stammered, his voice dropping to a whisper. How do you have access to the back end? That's illegal. I'll sue you. I'll have you arrested for hacking. I didn't hack anything, Julian. I logged in. You're a detailer. He shrieked, his voice cracking, losing all its polished charm. You wash cars. You're a nobody. I was a detailer. I corrected him, stepping closer. The guests parted around us, sensing the shift in gravity. 12 years ago. Then I was a salesman. Then I was the general manager of the downtown branch. You didn't know that, did you? Because every time you called home, you only talked about yourself. And Mom and Dad, well, they never asked. I looked at my parents. They were frozen, confusion warring with denial on their faces. 2 years ago, I continued, turning back to Julian. The owner of the Prestige Group was looking to retire. He liked me. He liked my work ethic. He liked that I was the first one in and the last one out, habits I picked up because I had nothing else. No safety net. No parents paying my rent. I swiped the screen to the ownership tab. He offered me a buy-in. It was a risk. I leveraged everything. But the business grew. We acquired 3 more locations last month, including the one in the city. The one you walked into last Tuesday, demanding the VIP treatment and bullying the sales rep until she cried. Julian backed up until his legs hit the bumper of the Ferrari. No, that's impossible. You don't have that kind of money. I do now, I said calmly. I own Prestige Automotive Group, Julian. I own the dealership. I own the financing arm. And technically, I pressed a button on my phone. The Ferrari's lights flashed twice. The horn honked, a sharp, aggressive sound that made my mother jump. The doors locked with a heavy mechanical thud. I own this car. The The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the ice melting in the cooler. My father looked from me to the car, then to Julian, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Alex?" My mother whispered, her voice trembling. "Is this true?" "Check the registration, Julian," I said, nodding toward the car he was leaning against. "Go ahead. Open the glove box." "Oh wait, I just locked it." "Let me help you." I tapped my phone again. Click. The door unlocked. Julian didn't move. He looked like a man standing on a trapdoor that had just swung open. "Open it," my father demanded, his voice harsh, panicked. He needed to know. He needed to know if he had bet on the wrong horse for 30 years. Julian opened the passenger door with shaking hands. He fumbled with the latch of the glove compartment. Papers spilled out. He grabbed the registration document. He stared at it. He didn't speak. "Read it," I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of authority. The weight of the CEO, registered owner. Julian choked out, his eyes watery. "Prestige Auto Group." "And the lien holder?" He swallowed hard. "A. Vance Holdings, LLC. A for Alex." I clarified for the room. "And I'm afraid, Big Brother, that A. Vance Holdings has a very strict policy on delinquency, especially when the lessee insults the owner's staff and burns money on a grill while owing $40,000 in back payments." I looked at the Ferrari, then back at him. "I'm taking the car back, Julian. Tonight." Julian didn't fight. He didn't scream. He simply deflated. It was like watching a puncture in a high-pressure tire. The air hissed out of him, leaving behind a crumpled, empty suit. He stared at the registration paper in his hand, his lips moving soundlessly, reading the name A. Vance Holdings over and over again. "But we have a grace period," Julian whispered, grasping at straws. "I talked to the manager." He said, "You talked to Gary." I interrupted. "Gary called me 5 minutes after you left his office. He told me you threw a stapler at him when he denied your request for an extension." "That's assault, Julian. We could have pressed charges. Instead, I told him to let it slide. Consider that my birthday gift to you." My mother moved then. The shock had worn off, replaced by a terrifyingly calculative look I had seen her use on shopkeepers and waiters for years. She walked past Julian, stepping over the charred remains of the $100 bill, and came to me. She reached out, her hand hovering near my shoulder, trembling slightly. "Alex," she said, her voice dropping into a register of warmth I hadn't heard since I was 6 years old. "My son, a CEO? Why didn't you tell us? We would have been so proud." "Proud," I repeated, stepping back so her hand grabbed only empty air. 5 minutes ago, you watched him burn money in my face and you laughed. You called me a disappointment. We were just motivating you." My father chimed in, rushing to join the new winning team. He wiped sweat from his forehead with a napkin. "Tough love, Alex. It made you who you are. If we had coddled you, maybe you wouldn't have built this empire. In a way, we helped you build this." The audacity was breathtaking. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. "You helped me by showing me exactly who I didn't want to become," I said. "And now, I'm going to help Julian in the same way." I held out my hand, palm open, expectant. "The key, Julian." "Alex, please," Julian begged, tears finally spilling over, mixing with the sweat on his face. "I have a date tomorrow. I have clients to impress. If you take the car, I look like a fraud. It'll ruin me." "You are a fraud, Julian." The car was the only thing holding the illusion together. "It's time to wake up." He hesitated. He looked at our parents, pleading for them to fix it, to write a check, to yell at me until I complied. But they looked away. They were looking at the ground, at the trees, anywhere but at the son who was no longer the golden boy. They realized the bank of mom and dad was empty, and the new bank had just closed its doors. With a sob that was more pathetic than tragic, Julian dropped the heavy, red key fob into my hand. "Thank you," I said. I walked over to the Ferrari. The driver's door felt heavy, solid. I slid into the leather seat. The seat I knew had a stitching defect on the left bolster, a defect I noted mentally to have fixed by my service team on Monday. The engine roared to life, a deep, resonant growl that shook the patio furniture. I rolled down the window. The entire family was watching, a tableau of regret and envy illuminated by the porch lights. "Oh, and Julian," I called out over the engine's idle. He looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "Don't worry about a ride home. I left my truck keys on the table. It's got a quarter tank of gas and the AC is broken, but it runs." Just be careful with the transmission, second gear sticks. I shifted into first. Consider it a loner. I didn't wait for a response. I punched the gas, and the Ferrari launched forward, kicking up a storm of gravel that dusted their expensive shoes. I watched them in the rearview mirror, three small, shrinking figures standing in the dust of my success. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't even feel sad. I just felt light. 8 months later, the glass walls of my office overlooked the city skyline. It's raining today, a gray wash that makes the warmth of the espresso in my hand feel even better. My assistant, Sarah, knocks on the door frame. "Mr. Vance, you have a visitor in the lobby. He says he's your brother? He doesn't have an appointment." I turn my chair. "Let him up." Julian walks in a minute later. He looks different. The Italian suit is gone, replaced by a generic, off-the-rack blend that fits poorly at the shoulders. He's lost weight. The arrogance that used to radiate off him like heat waves is gone, replaced by a nervous twitch in his left eye. "Alex," he says, not meeting my gaze. He stays near the door, afraid to step onto the plush carpet. "Julian, have a seat." He sits on the edge of the chair. I wanted to return the truck. I parked it downstairs. I put gas in it. "Keep it," I say. "I transferred the title to your name last week. It's yours." He looks up, surprised. "Really? Why?" "Because you need it. I heard Mom and Dad had to downsize to a condo. I heard you're living on their couch." He winces. "Yeah, it's temporary. I'm working sales at a furniture outlet now. It's commission only, but I'm actually good at it. When I actually work, I mean, good." I nod. Honest work pays better than pretend work, eventually. He shifts uncomfortably. "Look, Alex, I came to ask. I know I don't deserve it, but is there any opening here? In sales? I know cars. I know people." I look at him. I see the desperation, but I also see a flicker of something new. Humility. Real humility, born of necessity. But I also remember the burning money. I remember the grease monkey comments. Forgiveness is one thing. Amnesia is another. "No," I say gently. "There's no place for you here, Julian. My team is built on trust and respect. We don't have shortcuts here." His shoulders slump. He stands up, nodding slowly. "Right. I get it. I deserve that. But," I add, pulling a business card from my drawer, "I know a guy who runs a logistics company in the next town over. Hard work. Long hours. But he's fair. Tell him I sent you. Tell him you're ready to start at the bottom." Julian takes the card. He looks at it like it's a lifeline. "Thanks, Alex. Really, don't thank me. Earn it." He walks to the door, then pauses. "That Ferrari, did you ever sell it?" I smile, taking a sip of my espresso. "No, I kept it. It reminds me to always check the glove box." He manages a weak, rueful smile and walks out. I turn back to the window, watching the rain wash the city clean. Karma isn't always a lightning bolt. Sometimes it's just the slow, steady rain that washes away the dirt, leaving only what's real. And for the first time in my life, my reality is exactly where it needs to be.
All right, which of the 5 stories shocked you the most? Drop the number in the comments right now. Smash subscribe and turn on notifications because every Saturday we drop a brand new 2-hour karma compilation with the wildest revenge stories on YouTube. See you in the next one.